Hey, this is Nandi with the Codename Sister Podcast coming at you once again. I hope your day has been great. If not, you need to find out what it takes to make it great. Let me stop that before somebody cuss me out. Not that I can hear that. I guess that's one of the beauties of podcasting is that you can say all kinds of things and people can't cut you off. You know how when you're having a conversation with other people and they have this tendency maybe to overtalk you, or maybe you are that person and you overtalk other people. Sometimes I do that, and it's not always intentional. And most of the time I would say that it's probably not intentional, but it happens. So maybe we should all just practice just a little bit more consideration with the next person, especially those who habitually overtalk other people. Let's try a little, what is it? Is it tenderness? Let's try a little tenderness. Yeah. Let's try a little consideration. So, I have been spending the last few weeks, well, maybe the last month or so, working to build my business credit. And I know that there's lots of ways to do different things, and when it comes to business credit, there are multiple strategies you can use for building business credit. I have been in business with my bath and body company, Nandi's Naturals, since 2009. And during that time, while I did apply for credit, the credit that I applied for and received was credit that required a personal guarantee from me. And you'll hear people sometimes say PG, and what they mean by that is a personal guarantee. That's where you are saying that, hey, if this falls into arrears, I can be held personally responsible. And that's not always a good thing in business. In some aspects, there comes a point in time where in business, you may have to PG some things like business loans, SBA, those types of loans. But there are other there are other types of credit that you can get where you don't have to PG, and it'll help you to build your credit to the point where you are better, I guess you can say, more attractive to creditors when you apply for larger sums and different lines of credit. So that's what I'm working on with my business credit with that particular business. I'm working to build my business credit so that I can access more acceptable terms of credit from other places. And a lot of times when we hear credit on the personal side, it's like, oh, keep your debt low, don't incur any debt, make sure those credit cards don't go over 30% utilization, which I say keep it less than 30%, just as an FYI, somewhere about 5-10% of utilization. But in the business world, the credit that you're able to accumulate counts positively when you can show that you have been able to access higher limits of credit. So gradually higher and higher and higher. So to build my business credit, I started with these what are called net 30 accounts. And some of them are even like net 14, net 2. And what it means is that within 2 days or 14 days or 30 days or whatever from the time that you place the order and they allow you to buy it on temporary credit, that you have to then repay it. So if I purchase something on December 10th using a net 30 account, by January 10th, I'm supposed to have paid the invoice on it. And that's what they do. They invoice you. And really you want to pay it before that because that helps your scores if you pay early. So it's not just about paying within paying by the 30th day or whatever, from the date of invoice, but actually paying earlier. So earlier payments help to give you higher scores. So I've accumulated about 6 of the net 30 accounts so far as of this date. I've got 6 trade lines. And so as those trade lines start to report, and I've got two of them reporting, and the trade lines are the vendor accounts that I just spoke about, the net 30 accounts and net 2 and net 14 and whatever they are. So those two of those accounts have started to report. I'm waiting on four more of them to report, and I'm also looking for other trade lines that I can apply for so that those will start to report. And then my next step is once those are reporting, and I've got what's called a paydex score, and you get that through Dun & Bradstreet, and I've got a decent experience score, then I'm going to begin to apply for like store cards, store credit cards. And then once I've established those trade lines, those are reporting, I will start to apply for revolving credit. And each time I apply, I want to make sure that the strategy I use is that I'm applying when my credit is at its strongest so that I get the highest limits and highest terms from the companies that I'm applying with. So I don't want to be premature in my application with some companies where they might approve me, but for lower limits. I want to wait until my credit is solid enough so that I am eligible for higher limits. So there's the revolving credit. And then once I've got my revolving credit, that's when my personal credit is really going to start to matter, because at that point I'm going to start looking at various business loans and lines of credit. So at the same time that you're building business credit, because you hear people saying, well, you don't have to have a PG. At some point, if you're looking to borrow large sums of money, substantial sums of money, at some point you're going to have some type of guarantee on those loans. So it pays to also be working on your personal credit as well as building your business credit. So the two of them should be done simultaneously so that you are ready when that business credit gets to where it needs to be, that personal credit is there. And now, I know some people go into it. I've seen some people, because there's some finance groups that I'm in, there are some people who are satisfied with just getting the business credit because they want to, say, buy a vehicle. And it's not that they're using the vehicle for business, it's that their personal credit is so shot to hell that they can't get a loan on their personal credit with a decent interest rate and payment. So they're building business credit. And I'm like, that's kind of just like, I don't know, I guess they think they're skirting the system, but I look at it this way. If you haven't gotten yourself together to the point where you can maintain a personal account, a personal payment, you're doing horribly with that, what's to say that you're not going to do the same thing when you get the business one? And a lot of them like, well, it takes the responsibility off of me. If I don't pay for it, it doesn't get reported to my credit. And I look at it this way. Whatever I'm getting in business, I need it to be a tool to make money, not one where I'm just putting money out to it, because that comes to the same thing. So then you end up in the same position you were when you were using your personal credit. So now what are you going to do? Start another business and another business and another business? I mean, at what point do you say, I just need to be more responsible with my finances? And that can be hard for a lot of us, because especially being black in America, a lot of us didn't grow up with the best money management skills, and we didn't always have the best examples of money management skills. And that's why so many of us are behind the curve. And I mean, that's just like me. I've been congratulating myself because I am doing so well when it comes to managing finances, especially compared to my past. And it's so much that I'm learning, and I'm inspired by what I'm learning. And I'm even more inspired when I see the work that I'm doing to turn the tables. When I see the fruits from that, it's just like, why did I do this? Why didn't I know to do this in my 20s? And I find myself, I was asking that question a lot lately, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to let it be what it is. I'm going to make peace with the fact that I didn't know then, but I do now. And because I know, that's information that I can even pass on to my children so that they're not scuffling the way that I was scuffling when I was coming up. And you see, the thing about it, when I was in my 20s, I made really bad financial decisions, and I made a lot of money, especially when I was in real estate. I made a lot of money. And I'm like some of these actors and actresses out here right now. I didn't have a dime to show for it. It was all gone, all the hard work, because real estate, anybody who's in the real estate business can tell you that real estate is not an easy business to be in. It requires work. You're going to put in the work. When you get that commission check, you have earned your commission. Whether you're the listing agent, the selling agent, or both, you have earned your money. And I just basically squandered it because I didn't have good money management skills, and I didn't have someone, constantly saying, you need to get your money right. This is not intelligent behavior, and I came from, watching my mom, watching it be a struggle for her and thinking that was normal, that's the way black people are supposed to live, that it's supposed to be this struggle, even though I didn't necessarily see like my grandmother struggling like that. But my focus was my mother because that's the house that I was living in. So I'd see my mother when she running short on cash, she'd have like a barbecue sale, and be selling like barbecue pork chop sandwiches and chicken sandwiches, and I'm thinking she was the candy lady and the pickle lady. And I'm just thinking that, that's the way it's supposed to be. You just pick up a few little side hustles, to help you make ends meet or whatever. In my mother's case, it wasn't so much that she was squandering money, but where we lived, in the part of Louisiana that we live, the town we live in, the pay was atrocious. So it really just wasn't enough to support a family well if you were working for someone else. And, my mother, teaching was her thing, and we know that teachers are not some of the most highly paid people. And in that little town, they darn sure weren't some of the most highly paid people. But again, I didn't get a whole lot of financial learning from my mother, even though I was the one who went out and, paid the bills for her. When I got older, she'd send me out to go pay the water bill, the electric bill. But for me, it was just, I'm walking into a building, I'm handing them the little payment stub or whatever and the money and getting the receipt and walking out. But there still wasn't, when I came home, like, let me tell you, why this has to be paid and how this has to be budgeted and how to reconcile what's in your account with what you've spent and all. I never got those types of financial classes. And when I ran into my crises, self-induced as they were, because that's what most of them were, I would call my mom and my grandmother, and it's like, hey, they're about to turn off my electricity, and I need some money. Given my grandmother used to tell me, don't call me again for a few months. You better get your stuff together, and she would leave it at that. And I don't know if maybe she'd tell my mom, hey, you need to talk to that girl about, how she managing her money or not or whatever. But, my mom would go get a loan if she had to make sure that whatever it was that my crises induced and called, that she was going to help me get out of it. My mom, I kind of laugh about it. Sometimes I give the example that if there was a fire, and instead of my mom saying, hey, let's go around it, so that you don't get burned, giving you the lesson, she'd hold your hand and walk straight into the goddamn fire with you, and y'all both just sizzling. And so, but I say that to say I can never remember a time when my mom said what my grandmother, anything similar to what my grandmother would say. My mother, she wasn't the reinforcer. She wasn't like, you need to get your shit right. You need to learn how to budget your money. Let's sit down and let's go over what a budget is and, why it's important and, pay your bills first. So when you don't have parents or someone close to you that can like reel you in, and they just keep on letting you just, run into them damn brick walls and you don't learn, you just keep running into those damn brick walls, you struggle and you start to believe that that's normal. And that anybody doing anything other than that, that's a rarity, that's not common. And the truth about it is, well, maybe I shouldn't say the truth about it is because it is the American way that many of us live lives of debt from the cradle to the grave. And so much of it affects us, but it affects black people, I would say, more than any other group in America because not only are we struggling, but and that decreases our access to different things that could help us, but there are also the systems and institutions also deny us access to a great extent. So we've got two forces working against us. We've got our own upbringing where we lack financial education and intelligence, and then we've got a system set up to deny us, even those who have the financial sense and intelligence. So, that can be pretty tough for a lot of us. But once we get it in our heads that it's important that we have that kind of stuff in order, that it's important if we have families that we generate wealth that can be not just left to them, but they can also learn how to work, because it don't pay to just leave wealth to your children and they don't know what to do with it. So they end up losing it because you did all this work, all this overnight work that made y'all wealthy, and they didn't take any part in it. So one, they don't appreciate it and respect it, and two, they don't even know how to keep it going because you did all the work. And you didn't require them to have a role in it. So that's another thing that I'm doing with my children. It's like, I need you to have an investment in this too. I'm not going to be the only one invested in this. Not only do I need your monetary investment, but I need your physical, mental, and emotional investment in this, because this is going to be what is flipped over and over for generations to come. So I also need you to teach it to your children. And if you start your children from young, that means they even have a head start on you, because your mom didn't start teaching you until you were this age, as a teenager or something. So I need you to get them before they even reach their teens, so that by the time they reach their teens, they have a strong financial base of knowledge. And that's my podcast for today. I just wanted to share with y'all my business building activities and what I'm doing. And it's going to be like a congratulatory thing for me for a while as far as my business credit goes, because like I said, I've had all these opportunities to do it, but it never, at those times, it was always something else. And that's how life is sometimes. And if you let things in your life just start one thing supplanting another, you will never get around to what really, really matters. So in this phase of my life, it's like relationships, they're good. And I'm not talking about relationships with my children and stuff like that, because, that's a given. But I'm talking about relationships with intimate relationships, even though that's coming. There'll be the right one. There will be the right one. Believe me, when I say that. But what I'm saying is, instead of me putting all my energy into relationships where I was not getting from them what I was putting into them, I'm taking that same energy and I'm putting that into the building of my business credit, because that business credit is something I can use to expand my reach. And that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to expand my reach, to teach my children how we expand our reach so that we have that generational wealth there. So I'm looking outside of my life on this earth, and I want them to start picturing life with them outside this earth, so that they know what it is they need to leave for their children, so that their children can then do the same thing. We look at like the Waltons, with Walmart. Their father is gone, but his distribution of wealth is still there. And not only is it there, they're not just squandering it and not rebuilding it. They are adding to the wealth left behind by their father. And that's how that has to go. Because just like wealth is gained, it can be gained in a generation, it can be lost in a generation. And some of the research I was doing actually says that a lot of the wealth that is gained in one generation is lost in the next. And I don't want that to happen, because then that's just like, hell, I could have just been, I don't know, living a substandard life. Just seeing all kind of shit and broke all the time. I could have did something like that. So think on that, especially if you're looking to make financial changes. And don't let it doesn't have to be 2021 resolution. It could be a 2020 resolution. I always, when I hear people talk about resolution, I don't need a new year to start for me to decide that I need to do different. I don't want to put off a decision that I'm making today until January 1st comes. When I make a decision, I start to work on it right then and there. And those are the decisions that are normally longer lasting than the ones that are made on January 1st. Because we see what happens with the gyms. All these gym memberships. I know gyms probably make more money in the month of January, than they do in other months. Because you've got all these people signing up because they're New Year resolution. And it's New Year, people, not New Year's, okay? It's the New Year. Okay, so think on what I put, what I talked about. If you're somebody who's building your business credit, if you have realized the error of your ways when it comes to your personal credit, leave a comment. Let's talk about it. If there's something else you want to talk about as far as building business credit goes, send me a message. Leave that in the comments. I'd be happy to discuss it in an upcoming podcast. I may even have you on and we can talk about it together. So this is Nandi, Codename Sister Podcast. Y'all don't forget to like, rate, subscribe. You can find me on most major podcast players. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google, Podchaser, Spotify, Captivate. I'm out there, y'all. Thank you. You've just listened to the Codename Sister Podcast with Nandi.